Why, hello there. The Lore Hunter here, and today I'm coming to you as your FromSoft loving lore nerd friend who saw the Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN reveal trailer and trying to process it. When I first saw the reveal trailer at the Game Awards, I was confused. Then Keeley follows the trailer by saying that
Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN is a new co-op action-adventure game from Bandai Namco Entertainment and From Software.
And it really didn't clarify anything for me. With a battle royale shrinking boundary and guest appearances from Dark Souls, NIGHTREIGN felt like it was falling somewhere between a mod and a meme. Looking online, I found interviews with the director Junya Ishizaki and impressions from games journalists who'd spent 6 hours with the game. I was ready to see phrases like live service or battle pass and say goodnight to NIGHTREIGN, but what I read actually got me cautiously hyped. Don't get me wrong, NIGHTREIGN isn't really the type of game I come to From Software for, and it may not ultimately be for me, but what I read convinced me that this is less a AAA cash grab using the Elden Ring IP and more a AA passion project. And regardless of if NIGHTREIGN is a success or failure as a spin-off project individually, I think this is good news for what From Software is doing as a studio. So grab your beverage of choice, subscribe to the channel, and let's chat a bit about Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN. I'm not going to talk exhaustively about what we know about Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN in this video, but I'm going to give a really quick overview because what the heck this thing is was the big question on my mind after watching the reveal trailer. Oh, NIGHTREIGN. Okay. I'm so confused. What is it? If you're looking for an in-depth explanation, I recommend checking out Vadi's video or PC Gamer's explainer article, and I'll throw links to those in the description. The genre keyword explanation of Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN is that it's a standalone co-op survival action adventure RPG roguelite. That's a lot of words. To expand on that a little bit, NIGHTREIGN is a standalone spin-off Elden Ring game set in an alternate universe version of Limgrave called Limveld. You're not a nameless tarnished, but one of 8 Nightfarer characters who have been brought to Limveld to take on the Night Lord by making roguelite-style runs through Limveld to defeat bosses and make your way toward the big bad. You start in the Round Table Hold where you'll choose to be one of the 8 Nightfarer characters, and then you'll select a big boss to face, with 8 big bosses being unlocked over the course of the game. You're then dropped by a spirit bird into Limveld where you'll need to survive 3 in-game day-night cycles. You do this by yourself or with 2 other Nightfarers that are either random players or those you share a password with. Each day you'll fight enemies and field bosses as you upgrade your character by leveling up and getting loot, with the map slowly shrinking as night approaches and a night rain closes in on you. Once night arrives, you'll fight a boss, and should your group survive, you'll move on to the next day and repeat this process. There is no torrent, but movement is faster, and NIGHTREIGN characters can jump and vault over terrain, and there's no fall damage. Combat is similar to Elden Ring, but in addition to the basics, the 8 characters have unique special abilities and ultimate moves that create diverse playstyles. Unlike Elden Ring, where leveling up was broken down into selecting individual stats to improve, in NIGHTREIGN leveling up will change the character's stats in a static way. This means that some characters will just have better stats in certain areas than others. Equipment has been simplified to 6 weapons, 3 in each hand. Weapons in NIGHTREIGN may have level requirements but not stat requirements, so characters can wield any weapons, and these weapons will give passive buffs just for being equipped regardless of if they're being used. While there's a bunch of other little details, that's the gist of it. So we know what the heck NIGHTREIGN is now, but why the heck is NIGHTREIGN? The guy to answer this is Junya Ishizaki, director of NIGHTREIGN. Ishizaki has been with From Software since Dark Souls 1 as a level designer. Following that, he worked as a game designer on Bloodborne, a lead game designer on Dark Souls 3, and then as battle director for Elden Ring. And now Ishizaki is helming NIGHTREIGN as the director. He explained in recent interviews that, as a developer, I had many ideas for what could potentially be new games during the development of the past titles I've worked on, including Elden Ring. So initially I took the idea to Miyazaki-san, who gave it the green light. He was a little involved in the initial concept phase of the game, but after that he gave full reign to me. The one bit of guidance that sticks out is that he basically said, "Do it as you please for this project." Basically, Ishizaki was encouraged to create a concept from his ideas, pitched the concept for NIGHTREIGN, and it was greenlit. From Software president and Souls mastermind Hidetaka Miyazaki has expressed for some time now that he wants to see other staff in the director's role, and Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN is From Software following through on that. We've already seen Sekiro's lead game designer Masaru Yamamura take the reins with Armored Core 6, and now we're getting a passion project from Elden Ring's battle director. I can relate to the perspective that sees this as a bit of a cash grab, but after reading through interviews, I see it as kind of the opposite. The success of Elden Ring opened up the opportunity to take a risk, to leverage the IP to create something a bit different and experimental for From Software. This is speculation on my part, but I don't see this project getting made in a scenario where they need to make a bunch of new assets and use up a bunch of manpower in the studio. I see NIGHTREIGN as making use of Elden Ring's rich and expansive world to focus on playing with the combat and the formula, and I'm totally here for that. While I love Elden Ring, I do think it represents in many ways the limitations of the RPG and combat systems the Souls games have iterated on since Demon's Souls, especially the bosses. In imagining future titles, I hope to see From Software explore new avenues with regards to RPG mechanics, player verbs, and how bosses can test and challenge players. NIGHTREIGN seems like a great testing ground and way to experiment with ideas that could be ported and further explored in future titles. And it's great to do this with a new director like Ishizaki in the chair, who has a decade of experience on Souls games, but can bring a fresh perspective and do it as he pleases, as Miyazaki encouraged. Ishizaki explained his goals with NIGHTREIGN. "We've always been seen as a company that makes these Souls-likes, or this kind of traditional formula of Souls-like, and so I saw this as an opportunity to do something different. Also, personally, I enjoy these co-op multiplayer experiences, and I wanted to make something that was very much focused on that with NIGHTREIGN." In another interview, he expands on this, stating, "The focus was condensing the experience down, the RPG elements, the exploration, the character building and leveling. We wanted that to feel like it was all coming together and culminating in a boss fight, but in a more concentrated form. For this new sense of accomplishment that you wouldn't quite find with Elden Ring or our previous titles, we felt like we needed some new mechanics and some new elements to add into that mix. We've never really held this stance, let's absolutely not do anything that other companies are doing or not follow any trends. So we didn't really see this as chasing a trend, but we saw these as interesting elements that could work well within our multiplayer focused session-based gameplay. The explicit goal of NIGHTREIGN is to do something different, to mess with the formula and bring in new ideas. If you're like me, you were a bit thrown off by the Battle Royale shrinking map mechanic in the trailer, but Ishizaki's right. If From Software sees a mechanic that sparks an idea, there's no reason not to go with it. And ultimately, it wasn't the shrinking map that threw us off, but it as a marker of a live service game, or microtransactions, or other unsavory gaming trends. Luckily, Ishizaki has closed the door on that concern, saying, "We want to be clear that NIGHTREIGN is not a live service game. Once you buy NIGHTREIGN, you get the complete package. Everything is unlockable out of the gate, so we want to be clear that this is what we wanted to make. It's not intended as a live service game." If this game was a directive from the higher-ups as a cash grab, you know these elements would be on the table, but they're not. And for those of you who are still wary, I say keep that energy. I've got full faith in From Software that their focus is in making interesting games that they want to play, but there's no harm in waiting to see how things play out. And like I said, I don't know how NIGHTREIGN will ultimately land for me. As the old adage goes, I've got two wolves inside me. I come to games for two reasons primarily. One reason is to strategize and make interesting decisions, and the other reason is to immerse myself experientially in fictional worlds and stories. Games I love like the Souls games do a mixture of both, but I've historically come to their games most readily to experience the worlds and stories they create and how those stories tie into the gameplay. So seeing the Nameless King duking it out in not Limgrave against some Elden Ring dudes felt a bit heretical. All of these elements have meanings and stories that are dear to me, and even though they're hand-waving it by saying that the Night Lord is drawing in people far and wide, it's still goofy, and we know that they're working backwards from the idea that it would be fun to put some Dark Souls dudes in Elden Ring. And you know what? Why not? I can let the more serious side of my story and world wolf sit this one out and let it be fun, and engage with NIGHTREIGN from the perspective of enjoying my strategy and player decisions wolf that will probably eat up the survival roguelite design. Elden Ring was already in many ways the greatest hits of the last decade of Souls games, now can just do that more explicitly by bringing in some old faves. The design challenge I foresee with this is adapting legacy boss movesets from Elden Ring and especially Dark Souls games for the faster pace of play seen in NIGHTREIGN. It doesn't seem like it would be as simple as bringing legacy bosses in. My hope is that the time saved by reusing assets is spent instead tweaking their encounter designs to match the fast-paced co-op gameplay to the same level that the new bosses will be. Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN is far from the worst way they could mash up the Souls IPs, and I think it's probably good for From Software and the Souls community alike to not be too precious or self-serious about these worlds and have a little fun. I also don't think it being goofy precludes it from having a fun story that might be worth exploring a bit, and I'm curious to see how they implement a codex as Ishizaki mentioned in an interview. It makes sense given how frantic the pace of the game seems to be to not have post-its on the back of equipment be the primary text, instead opting to place it in a spot where players can peruse the codex between sessions. Beyond all of this, there are two more specific concerns I've seen mentioned that I think are worth keeping an eye on. The first is the variety and replayability of the map, which was apparently not operating at full capacity during the session journalists participated in but got just a bit stale over the 6 hours. For this one, I'm withholding judgment for now. A closed network test has been announced for February with signups starting January 10th, and I'm hoping in the CNT they show off a bit more of the variety in the map that was only hinted at in interviews. The other issue I see is the exclusion of 2-player groups in NIGHTREIGN. As it stands, there's a solo mode and a 3-player mode, with the 3-player mode being randos or friends linking up using a shared password like was used in Elden Ring. I know I'm not alone in thinking that in this case the password system seems a bit flimsy for a game of this type, and I think it's a huge bummer that as far as we know, you can't do 2 players and an NPC as a group. Anecdotally, I've had multiple conversations with people about NIGHTREIGN in which they're hoping that in the full release it's possible to do a session with a pair of players. I know that the design is focused on 3-player groups, and it looks like they're doing some neat stuff with it, such as having the Cerberus-looking Gladius boss break into 3 parts at points to individually duel the players, but that doesn't ultimately change the fact that a lot of people would like the ability to play in pairs. I'm personally looking forward to the solo mode, and I like the possibility of playing with all of you using something like Cardigan as a shared password, but I think it would be cool to also play with a friend or my spouse, and then tack on an NPC to round things out. And there you have it, your FromSoft loving lore nerd friends' thoughts about Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN. Whether it's fantastic or foul, I'm happy to see FromSoft using success to get some new staff in the director's seat, bringing in new perspectives and making the games they want to play. The combat mechanics of the Souls games are something that can only benefit from a small project like NIGHTREIGN, where they can mess with the formula and try out ideas that would otherwise be too risky or hard to experiment with in a project with a larger scope. As a fan of roguelites, I think NIGHTREIGN could be a lot of fun, and I'll be curious to see how they handle bringing legacy bosses from Elden Ring and Dark Souls into the fast-paced and bombastic looking gameplay of NIGHTREIGN. Let me know in the comments what you think about Elden Ring NIGHTREIGN. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Lore Hunter for more Elden Ring content. Thanks for watching.